In 1965, the Beatles were at the height of their powers, creatively and culturally. Having already conquered the world, they spent the year pushing the boundaries of their music, exploring new sounds, and further solidifying their place as the biggest band in the world. It was a year that saw them experimenting with their sound, delving into new genres, and creating some of the most iconic music of their career. The year began with the Beatles taking a well-deserved break after the whirlwind of 1964. But by February, they were back in the studio, recording what would become one of their most ambitious projects yet, the album Help. The title track, Help, was a reflection of the pressures of fame, with John Lennon's lyrics expressing a vulnerability that was becoming more apparent in their music. The song was a huge hit, reaching #1 on both the UK and US charts. Help was released in August 1965 and was accompanied by the band's second feature film of the same name. Directed by Richard Lester, the film was a madcap adventure that took the Beatles around the world, from the snowy mountains of Austria to the beaches of the Bahamas. While the film was less critically acclaimed than A Hard Day's Night, it was still a commercial success, and the accompanying soundtrack featured some of the Beatles' most beloved songs, including Ticket to Ride, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, and Yesterday. Yesterday was a significant departure for the Beatles. A solo performance by Paul McCartney, accompanied only by a string quartet, the song was a stark contrast to the band's previous work. Its introspective lyrics and melancholic melody were a sign of the band's growing maturity and willingness to experiment with different musical styles. Yesterday became one of the most covered songs in history and remains one of the Beatles' most enduring hits. Throughout 1965, the Beatles continued to tour, playing to packed arenas and stadiums around the world. In June, they embarked on a European tour, and in August, they returned to the United States for their second American tour. The highlight of the tour was their historic performance at New York's Shea Stadium on August 15, 1965, where they played to a record-breaking crowd of over 55,000 fans. The deafening roar of the crowd made it nearly impossible for the band to hear themselves, but the concert was a triumph, further cementing their status as the biggest band on the planet. In December 1965, the Beatles released Rubber Soul, an album that marked a turning point in their career. Rubber Soul was a departure from the pop-oriented sound of their earlier work, with the band experimenting with new instruments, unconventional song structures, and more introspective lyrics. The album featured a range of musical styles, from the folk-influenced Norwegian Wood, This Bird Has Flown, to the soulful Drive My Car and the reflective In My Life. Rubber Soul was a critical and commercial success, reaching #1 in both the UK and US. It was a landmark album that showcased the Beatles' growing sophistication as songwriters and musicians, and it would influence countless artists in the years to come. The album's cover, with its distorted image of the band, hinted at the changes that were underway in their music and in their approach to their art. 1965 was also a year of personal growth for the Beatles. They were no longer the mop-topped pop stars of their early years. They were beginning to explore new ideas, both musically and personally. Their encounters with artists, intellectuals, and spiritual leaders broadened their horizons and influenced their music. This was the year that they first experimented with psychedelic drugs, an experience that would have a profound impact on their music and lead them down new creative paths. As the year drew to a close, the Beatles were at a crossroads. They had achieved unprecedented success, but they were also beginning to feel the strain of their relentless schedule and the pressures of fame. The music they were creating was becoming more complex, more introspective, and more experimental, reflecting their own personal and artistic growth. The year 1965 was a pivotal one for the Beatles, a year that saw them evolve from a pop sensation into true artists, paving the way for the groundbreaking work that would follow in the years to come. There are thousands more great videos like this on the channel. Please take a look, share and subscribe, or visit the Bonswivit shop on eBay, which has over 250,000 rare and collectible items listed.